Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Guns of Navarone RMP, Troy Shuker, Bose Nail, Justin Duso, Joseph Pizarro, Samson, Maris, Harry Blade, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Mike, Muted, Dick Earth Skeptic, NA Literalist Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Rob H, Nathan Thompson, The Real Gabster, Windrider, Liam Nedrick, Erwin Jennisons, Abraham Mohammed, Dave Rakia Gafford, Naibai, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Fireball X, Texas Mike, Edwin Johnson, Kirsten Smith, Alexander Main, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I'm going to raise the mic on whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their conversation while I set up for today's live show.
But yeah, I must say I'm proud of the guys in Master B. They actually keep themselves calm. They don't shill and put out the link to someone else like he did in the beginnings. I remember when Jose was in the panel when he did that, kept putting the panels out.
Yeah, but that doesn't happen. I mean, even with what is it, 70 or 74 people or whatever is in Master B, there's I think everyone just turns the notifications off and just looks at it at the appropriate time if they're expecting to join the panel and get a link like you know roughly what time I put it out, so I assume you've got the notification bell turned off, because otherwise it'd be ping 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 ping. It'd just annoy you.
No, mine is always on.
Yeah, mine's off. Exactly, you just turn the notifications off, and then every so often you just glance at it and see what's happening in Master B.
I'm happening in Master B.
Hey, Tim.
Hey.
Yeah, but if you want to have a conversation in Master B, you'll sit with that feed open. You don't need it to go bing, bing, bing. Whereas if somebody's trying to phone me on Skype, that, generally speaking, I won't sit and have endless conversations with them. I might have an hour-long phone call with them. I want the notification bell to be ringing if they ring me. But, for the groups, fuck that. It'd be binging all day if I left the notifications on.
Yeah, it only irritates me if I'm doing like a screen share thing that I'm recording and I'm like getting 20 minutes into a video, then it starts pinging everywhere.
Exactly. And then people like Anthony will moan, they'll be like, hey, don't respond to your Skype messages. It's like, well, generally speaking, I've got it fairly well shut down, because you'd never get a minute's peace. You just wouldn't.
Yeah, I think Anthony took what I did the other day when I argued against the Plimsoll line. I think he took that as an intentional form of deception. It's more of a self-deception.
Oh, I see what you mean. When you were explaining to him how you take it away from his point, he was saying that, yeah, that is something that Anthony's going to have to work on, because he sees malice often where it isn't malice, and if it is any malice, it's aimed inwards anyway, as you're describing. So it's like, well, the only malice is them lying to themselves. Yeah, there's an audience in this scenario. I don't need to go down that particular detailed route, but you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah, just don't take Anthony very personal.
The problem
I was trying to get Anthony to say that it is a deception, but it wasn't aimed at him.
Yeah, indeed. There's a bit of a gamma aspect to it, but also a kind of normie aspect to it. But people who come to this subject, it's defined by the masses as conspiratorial. Therefore, and probably intentionally so, gets linked with all kinds of kooky other stuff. And that'll often send people into this sort of mentality of thinking that everyone's out to get them and everyone shills, and it's like, get a grip. But I don't know, for me personally, I didn't come to it without having looked at what would be considered somewhat conspiratorial subjects prior to looking at this subject. So, for instance, subliminal messaging and psychopathy, borderline with kooky conspiratorial subjects in some aspects, because there are aspects of general day-to-day life that involve those aspects that possibly would be preferred not to be talked about, let's just say. Therefore, they kind of fringe into conspiratorial subjects. So for me, the shock was a little bit less. Whereas for someone like Anthony, who's probably, he was talking about looking at ancient Egypt and stuff. You're like, okay, so looking at propaganda history prior to coming to this then. Okay, well, it's going to be a bit of a shock, and that kind of shock can leave people paranoid. There's no other word for it, I'm afraid. And I'm not laying this all at Anthony's door by any standards, in case anybody thinks I am. It's just the example being used at the moment.
Well, no, I can understand that, because it's hard to figure out someone's intent when they're doing something, and you can't. It's like one of the hardest things to show. Like, but like in court, to show intent's fairly a simple thing, like, because they have parameters for it. But that doesn't necessarily means it was their intent. It's just the parameters that the court established to show intent. But
maybe malice is a better word than when you say intent.
Yeah. It's
you can't divine people's motivations, basically.
Right. Right, that's what it is.
For dramatic effect, I often do, though.
Well, that's only if they haven't supplied ample evidence of their motivation by the way they talk and say things, like when they come on ad hom and stuff, and avoid questions.
That's 2 steps on, but the first step I was just about to segue onto. Exactly right. So their actions is what you can actually focus on, what they actually do. And once they've done it, their action subsequent to that is also telling. Say, for instance, they state quite clearly that the geometric horizon is an Earth curve, and then later deny it. We've had that with a few non-famous fundies, or infamous if you want to call them that. But they'll make a statement 2 or 3 minutes later, sometimes 5 minutes later, they'll deny that they've said that, because it's then inconvenient for the argument that they're making, so they'll deny it. Well, those sorts of actions are something that you can point out and highlight, and there's no ifs, buts, or maybes about it. But the motivation behind that action, which is often what people will focus on, is like, well, this is folly. Why are we focused on this? We don't, why he would do that? Well, you could label it easily cognitive dissonance, but it's a bit broad, isn't it? Why divine the motivation is my point.
Well, when you call them
just
on
the action is all you need.
Go on,
Exactly.
John.
Go on, Tenth. Sorry.
It's just dishonest. That's all.
No, I'll let John finish, then I'll go.
That was the starting point, isn't it? They're only being dishonest to themselves. It's like, well, you can't derive any malice from that then, because it's only malice towards you if you take it that way. It's like, that's you letting it affect you. A point I try and get across often to, well, he's not here at the moment, but so we won't drag this out too much, but Neil. You're letting it affect you, and you're saying, oh, everybody else has got to behave like this because they're affecting everybody else. It's like, well, speak for yourself. So you're saying they're affecting you, basically. Go on, John, sorry.
Well, it's not so much that they're, like, even with Rumpus, I see it with him. Like, he'll start using the ad homs and the fallacious arguments, but he's doing that with the true belief that he's right. Like, he actually believes that he's right. He doesn't know how he's right, and he can't explain how he's right, but he believes it more than anything.
How do you know that?
I used to believe that, I used to believe the same way.
Okay, yeah, that's not fair. Okay, I've sold a lot of crap in my time as a salesman. Yeah, polished dog turds, we used to call them. Not very good products that you've got to sell. It's part of your job. Now, am I going to be equally as passionate about that particular polished dog turd as I am about an exceptionally good product that I also sell? Well, if the circumstance is such that I have to sell it, and that's your job, Now, you can question the morals here. That's not the point. I'm just saying that the enthusiasm level might not necessarily match the quality of the thing you're punting. Now, in the case of the globe, yeah, you can say he's pushing a polished dog turd with great enthusiasm, but you can't, again, divine his motivation. You say he truly believes that. Do you know that? I don't know either. I'm not saying he doesn't either, because that would be the same. Me divining his motivations and his beliefs in this instance.
Well, no, I'm just giving the contrapositive to that he's being intentionally deceptive. Yeah,
but you can't divine that either. The same is true on the opposite side. You can't divine, righteous intent. Well, how do you know that he actually believes it? He might be. Like my example, I'm saying, well, I'm paid to do so, and obviously to put bread on the table. Now, I don't do that anymore. A lifestyle choice that's left me with a lot less money. But my point is that at that particular juncture, you've still got everything that you've got in your criteria to label it as true belief. And it might not be. You're divining his thoughts.
Yeah, well, I wasn't intentionally doing that. I was just saying that the other side of it, just saying it's dishonest, like he's trying to deceive. Like, you could perceive it either way. That's why it's a folly to try to divine motivation.
I get that, and you're not doing either. This is just a discussion about that particular process, and in the examples you might be, but that doesn't mean I'm saying you are either way. But by example, if you were to say, well, look, he's not got nefarious intent. Why? Well, because he truly believes. Okay, so you're going to swing the other way. Well, the other side might start with that argument, and then what we then argue nefarious intent. It's like, no,
okay.
This is all nonsense.
Okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah, I think it's not motivation. Mostly it's evaluation. For example, you come on here, you take a position, then we show you how that position is wrong. Then you, in a very sleight of hand way, take the contrapositive position. So now you're arguing against the very position you took in the first place when you came here. Then we call you out on, hey, you're just holding two thoughts opposing each other at the same time. So isn't that contradictory, Rumpus, whoever that we're talking to? And then at this point, we have to evaluate, are they here to debate the issue honestly, or are they here to mix it up and confuse and deter? And sure enough, what they do, instead of saying, you're right, I just did hold two opposite positions. Let me figure this out. I'll call you back. Instead of doing that, they sit there and ad hom and go on and what they do.
Well, they're doing that because at the point of cognitive dissonance, then they're not going to be overcome by a logical argument. That's not going to work. They're going to shut down. And like a cornered animal, they're going to use every defensive tactic that they've got in their arsenal to try and deflate the situation, distract from the situation, move on from the situation, whatever. But what they're not going to do is suddenly start listening and conceding to the logic that says you are holding two different positions. You are, by definition, in cognitive dissonance by the fact that you're opposing this, because you're holding both positions. You can't have Earth curve blocking boats and buildings and nobody claims Earth curve horizon. That's a true contradiction. But they do hold both positions at the same time. Well, they hold one position when you point out it's not physical. They hold the other position when they want to prove it's physical. Well, that's painful, mentally speaking. So what are you going to do with that person? Well, what you should do in any normal circumstances when you're not detailing somebody's religious belief or fundamentalist assertion or cult-like behaviour after the fact, you should try and get that person on your side. The problem for me is I don't care. From that point of view, you've described perfectly what you should be doing. Well, you take apart their point, and then you point out when they've got a contradiction. Well, that's still based on their point. But after the fact, do I care if they realise or not? Not really. I haven't got that much sympathy. I've got to show this is my job. Therefore, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a counsellor, and I don't care. These people are inconsequential to me for the most part. A lot of the time they're very obsessed with me, which I've started to learn and laugh about. When people come along and say things like, come and debate me on a neutral platform. What I now hear is, I really want you. I really want you, Nathan. And I go, I don't care about you in the slightest. So why am I getting, in past days, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I get all in a tiz about it. Wow, why are you calling me a coward because I won't meet you behind the bike shed. You want to meet me, right? Well, piss off. I'm not interested in you.
Well, it's not
Go chase some other person. But you want me, right? Yeah, I know.
It's not so much you got to help them until they ask for the help. Meaning, back to my I don't push the rope example all the time. I mean, if you're drowning and I throw you a rope, hey, hang on and I'll save you. You never hang on. I can't save you. So the desire has to be there to want to be helped. Now, if they come in here and lose an argument and they don't want to be helped, that's what we experience most of the time, rather than someone who's honest and say, you know what, I don't have everything right, but I think I'm right on this, so let's debate it. And then we debate it. For example, can't have gas pressure without containment. Then they start, and then we say, show it to us so that we can have your same evidence that you've seen that you can have gas pressure without containment. Please, pretty please, may I see it? They never show it because they can never show it. And so then instead of saying, you know what, you're right, I cannot prove that. The only way I could prove gas pressure is with containment, just like all the citations say. So I have to go back to the drawing board. We never have that kind of decent talk.
No,
Yeah,
because
well,
as I say,
you can take a donkey to water, but you can't make him drink.
yeah, once you've reached the point of cognitive dissonance, you're not going to win them over with a logical argument. And as I say, there's only one path that you can take there if you want to take it further, which is to gain their trust. All the things they advise that in the first instance they should do with us when they give us advice: gain their trust, show a bit of empathy, put your arm around them and bring them back into the cult. That's their first advice. Now, I'm saying that is advice that I would completely forego. And if you're a fan of the show, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I couldn't care less if they care, believe, understand. Once I've pointed out that cognitive dissonance in this particular example, then I don't care. You don't recognize it. Okay, now share your pain by telling me how stupid I am. I project it all back onto me like I care. At that point, I don't care. Now, for people who are watching and go, well, yeah, but the audience wants to see you gain that person's trust, show them empathy because they've lost, put your arm around them, and then get them to, see your side of the argument. It ain't going to happen, because we're not dealing in a general debate about some political issue. We're detailing somebody's fundamentalist religious belief that is the accepted westernized standard. Therefore, is going to be unbelievably difficult to overcome that cognitive dissonance when it's at that stage, because that cognitive dissonance represents the dismantlement of their fundamentalist belief. One's going to let go of that of doing or putting our arm around them or showing empathy or sympathising or cracking a joke or doing anything else to diffuse the situation. It's never going to get them to actually go, yeah, I recognise that I say earth curve physically blocks boats and buildings, but I'm now telling you how we don't see physical earth curve and it doesn't exist. I understand that. Yeah, scratch of the head. No, that's never going to happen. Ever.
Well, not at trench level. That's what I'm seeing. Trench level people aren't here for the truth. They're here to fight for their ideology, right or wrong. It doesn't matter. They don't want to switch, even if they saw evidence for a switch.
Yep,
I've seen that Tim Osmond, where he said towards the end of it, "You've bamboozled me," and I was hoping somebody would point out that you think a dumb flat earther bamboozled you, Tim Osmond. What are you saying? But that was the best thing ever. I love that. That was hilarious.
Hey, Neil.
Hello, Neil.
Be at work.
Every time those seals come up, hey, Neil.
Hello. Gotcha, Neil.
Yeah, I'm in a bad reception area.
Every time those seals come up, I think of fish and chips.
All right. Just go on mute until you get better.
Oh yeah.
You think of fish and chips when you see the seals?
Yeah.
I think of special forces.
The only question I do have, because I don't care, is what do I do at that point? And half the time they're going to, because of the cognitive pain that they're in, they're going to try and disrupt anything that goes past that. And, sometimes, I don't know if the time period that I tolerate that's getting shorter and shorter, but most of the time it's like when I recognise that that's going to be just a triggered fundy, non-stop interrupting any further points that get made. There's only really one choice, which is just shut them out of the conversation at that point, because all they're being is disruptive because of their cognitive pain. Now, does that need to be shared with an audience? Some might say yes. Yeah, show the cognitive pain. Let him rant and ramble for 15 straight minutes. It's like, personally, when I'm watching it back, I don't find that very entertaining. I don't know if anybody agrees.
Well, I could make a comment maybe that addresses part of this. When I first came to your show, prior to being a panel member, it was like, wow, there's no take no prisoners here. It's like, bam, right in your face, black and white, my kind of guy. I like it. I like the quick, so you don't waste time kind of a deal. And then I say, well, I wonder if Nathan's doing this for dramatic reasons and to make his show more exciting. And then, then I became panel member and all this. And sometimes you get triggered fast, but you're doing it for a reason maybe I'm not aware of. And then, of course, you go to the language and all that. And I'm saying, well, is that really needed? I mean, I want to share this with kids, but I can't share with kids when he does that. But it's not my show. It's his show. And so I'm not sure sometimes, even now, sometimes if you do it on purpose, where you get triggered on purpose just to make entertainment better, at least the way you want it, or you do it because it really got under your skin and you're really pissed off. I mean, sometimes I can tell, sometimes I can't.
No, it's as much as I might make out that it's done for show. No, it's just that it's actually me getting irritated quickly, and I'll normally state it. I'll say what I'm feeling at the time, which is, no, you've really annoyed me. Normally in more blue language. But yeah, it's because they have really annoyed me. Now, that could be because I'm just in a foul mood. So, I don't know, 2 or 3 shows ago, just endless kids screaming all night and no sleep. And then you come to do the show and you're just in a bad mood. Well, that's just anybody, right? I tend to wear it right on my sleeve. So that's just how I am on the day.
Yeah, I mean, even when I first got into the whole flat earth thing, I was so mellow and taking it as, but now I don't have any sympathy for nothing. If you don't want to actually accept reality, then stuff you. That's my attitude now. I just don't give a damn anymore. It's like I've drawn a line. If you can't accept it, then it's your problem.
Yeah.
Well, I look at it differently because the content that comes out of this show is so good on the arguments and the logical fallacies and just the way you have set the whole show based on the scientific method, which I. Can I finish before your idea? Go ahead. I'll catch up.
Go on, Neil. He's conceded to your ejaculation. Just go ahead, Neil.
I think there's a big delay here. Are you hearing me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I said that like 20 seconds ago, though. have one
I know
day
there's
a
a
week
delay.
Have 1 day a week where you have a rated G show.
What does rated G mean?
Well, it's not little g, is it?
You have a different classification for films over there, Neil. I don't know what G means.
Well, it's not Gravity. I know that much.
Yeah, but I picked up from his tone that rated G means a film classification, but we have a totally different. We have the BBFC.
Yeah, it's for it means for general audiences.
For general audience, that's you here. You. Rated U in a triangle. U for universal for all. In British Board of Film Classification Standardisation, it's a U. You call it a G. Fine.
All right, so I'll finish what I'm going to say then. It all depends what purpose you have your show for, and only you know that, and you've stated it many times in segments, I think. If your purpose is to get this out to as many people as possible, and you target an audience market, then you do it to that. If that audience market happens to be younger people, then it's probably not for them. And they have an age limit, you said, on YouTube for them to be on it, right? Something like that.
Right. And I know from my stats how limited that audience is. And it's a trade-off between, people like yourself who often say it. They're like, I've got kids in the background. I watch it and I can't watch it if my kids are around. It's annoying and stop swearing. And I go, okay, but that's going to be a trade-off. If I bite my tongue because of a specific piece of colourful language that I'm using when I'm passionate about something, then that means that I'm going to potentially limit myself cognitively when I just want the information to flow as freely as possible, because it's a debate. So you're trying to focus on where the conversation's going as opposed to how colourful my language is. Now that's just an extra cog that I need to add while in a debate, when it's fast-paced, thoughts have got to come quickly, and you just can't focus quick enough to think about let's not swear. Sometimes. That's just me. So as much as it's a flaw, it's a character flaw if you want to see it, because I'm broadcasting and I should be cognizant of my language. So that's a failing on my part as a YouTuber. I get it. But just let me get to my point. But do I trade that and go, okay, to be a more clean broadcaster, it won't be necessarily as good a debate. It might be the case that they get they see that moment where I pause, which is all that this boils down to, right? This is all it boils down to. I pause for a minute to think, what's a better word than F? And in that moment, they jump into the conversation and segue it. And then I've got to deal with the segue and then bring it back onto the point that I stumbled around an F word. Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, I know. I know what you're saying. All right, go on, Flat. Sorry, I know you want to jump in.
No, I'm just saying, what I like about you, you're very straightforward. So, I mean, even with me, I still find myself swearing at the people. That's why I'm mostly on mute. Because, otherwise you're going to be wearing swear words the whole time. Because you get frustrated with their stupidity. It's just straight. I mean, you got to, like you say, you got to balance it 50-50. And if you got too much to the right, they can obfuscate, and that's what they do straight away.
That said, by having the conversation repeatedly, which we do, often in the pre-show, it's conditioning me. They're making me acutely aware, as opposed to just aware, and that can only be beneficial long-term, 10th. So, keep bringing it up and you will have the desired effect.
Yeah, and again, I'm not, like I said, it has to be a heart change. The person has to be real. I don't want you not real. I want you real. So that trade-off is there. But again, because my life got changed when I met God, everything changed. Now, I used to have like a sailor's mouth, even worse. I used to cuss more than you. So I'm no different than you. I'm not better than you. I was a sinner who cried out to be saved, and I got saved, and my heart changed. And I could only say God did that to me. I couldn't stop. I could not stop. I needed God to help me stop. So I'm saying that it's possible, but it's not maybe possible without help from a divine source. And so, but it is possible, because when I take on these situations with trenchers, I laugh at them because they deserve to be laughed at. I call them a fool because they put out a foolhardy comment. But I don't necessarily want to go to bad language and not have this thing be shared with other people, because they can gain so much from it.
Fair enough.
So that's it. I mean, I love you. I pray for you. I pray for your family. God's going to do a work in you, and I trust God.
I think you do a great job restraining yourself. Some of the people that come on here and the things they say, I would fall apart a lot quicker than you do.
Well, last Friday, I said there's a black guy that came on that described my language in exactly the same terms as 10th Man has, and then he got into a debate with somebody on the show. It was either live or in the after show, I can't remember. But he got very angry, definitely swore a few times, and after the fact, because up until then, Rebel, his name was, that was the reason I brought him back up. The guy's called Rebel. And up until then, had been the same in comments, very critical. Your points are good, I really get them, I'm grateful for your information. However, you devalue the information by being this way. And then he came on the show and took a totally different attitude. Now, that doesn't mean his point was wrong, and it doesn't mean that 10th Man is wrong. Far from it. Just because you can say, okay, well, actually, when I experienced it myself, you show great restraint. You know, it's like, yeah, but it's still not quite good enough, is it? Well, they're winning on that front as a result of this. So it's a good discussion to have, you know, because obviously I watch lots of stuff on debate, on how debates are formatted, how they're run, because that's what I do for a living. So obviously I'm interested in that subject and I'll look at it. And when I'm watching videos about debate, that's something that they will highlight. You know, if it descends into that particular position, the other side appears to have won to the audience. Well, therefore they're winning on that front, right? Well, that's where the criticisms come from. It's like, well, you need more restraint. You need to be, basically, if you're in the minority and you're fighting against a deeply seated Western belief that we're on a sphere, you've got to be an angel to combat it. Because if you show the slightest bit of failings in a what's considered civilized discussion, when even if your opponent's swearing at you, calling you a clown, calling you an idiot, ad homing you left, right and centre, ignoring your points, segueing, scattergunning, even with all of that, that will be deemed totally acceptable unless, and up until the point that I say the F word. That's basically what this boils down to. Because, well, they're just an unreasonable person, but they're still fighting for the truth, though. You, on the other hand, are a flat earther. So how dare you be anything other than the picture of perfect, socially acceptable persona when you present this argument that completely flies in the face of their claim that they scattergunned from, segued away from, demonstrated cognitive dissonance with, and then tried to shut you down with non-stop interruptions and constant blaspheming or whatever they're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but when they lose it, it makes them look bad, at least from my perspective. Oh, you have to go there now, huh? Because you can't answer the question, or you can't admit that maybe there's a flaw in your reasoning. So you have to go there now. I see. So that way the audience sees that my response would be, or whoever, and you've done it many times where you haven't cursed and you just lay them bare for their idiocy. I mean, it's just, if that's even a word. But the whole point is it's so apparent that they lost. Like the one time you asked, when they say gas and weight, they say, well, how do you weigh gas? And then Rumpus goes, in a container. I just laugh so hard when you do that.
These are all QE arguing points, though. Just had them all off.
Oh, I know. But we all learn from each other, and everyone adds to someone else's. But it's just awesome when I mean, the truth is the truth. I'm repeating the words of Paul the Apostle and John the Baptist and the other disciples. So they're their words. They're the eyewitnesses to Christ. I didn't see Christ.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, how dare you, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, Then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using stock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. Now, we are joined by 10th Man, Neil, Flatzoid, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Goeiemorgen.
Morning.
I don't think Neil's in anymore, and 10th has gone to make tea.
I saw that as soon as I transitioned and actually looked back at the screen rather than the camera, and I'm like, oh, no Neil then. So yeah, we're not joined by Neil, but I'm sure he'll be back. He's got access to the Hangout. Hey Arwin, good to have you, and hello everyone in Discord.
Hello.
Hey on.
Hello.
Good show, Arwin?
Yeah, it was okay. I started a little late because YouTube was down for like half an hour, but
Oh, okay. I didn't
that
notice.
was a bit weird.
And we've also got
But
Brian.
yeah, I got back up after half an hour, so yeah, it was cool.
That's Flat Earth Early Bird, for anyone who doesn't know. ARWIJN is the name of the channel. Hey Brian.
Hey Nathan, here, lad. How are you?
Might as well, do a bit of small talk before we get into housekeeping, as it's a Monday. Have we all had a lovely weekend?
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah.
How about you, Nathan?
Absolutely glorious, as always. Life is pretty sweet. What about people in Discord? You all had a nice weekend? Yeah, Nathan, it was really nice. Oh, that's good to know.
It's always nice. It's always nice when you're not dizzy from a spinning Earth.
I think John was going to actually give us a word or two. Go ahead, John.
I was going to play some crickets noises, but I couldn't find them quick enough.
That's perfectly fine. We'll rattle on with housekeeping. It's mainly to do a sound check once the live show is going out. Nevertheless, thank you for actually responding. Any evidence of a physical, that would be geometric, physical sphere edge, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
But they've never claimed a geometric horizon.
Yeah, they have. It's in Earth curve maths, marked with an X labelled horizon. They claim it blocks boats and buildings into the distance at a feet and inches value, so they can exclude perspective, angular size.
But that's just a thought experiment, really.
Yeah, thought experiment, not physical.
But they sent a balloon up, so they can see a distorted optical horizon that's physical but not physical at the same time, while you can try and think of it as physical but it's not physical. Does that make sense?
No, you can't be non-physical and physical. It violates the law of non-contradiction. So the horizon is definitely not physical. It's not actual. It's an apparent location. Now, they need, as globe believers, that not actual, non-physical horizon to be physical and capable of blocking stuff in the distance, so that they can qualify the feet and inches value, excluding perspective, because feet and inches values don't change with distance, as a physical obstruction by way of Earth curve physicality at the horizon they think is Earth curve. Now, obviously, Flatzoid's question's based on the fact that they're telling us how non-physical it is at the moment, because we've made it absolutely overtly clear with an argument called the Black Swan that there is no physical, geometric, sphere edge horizon for boats to fall over on a globe. The horizon's non-physical, therefore debunking all globe geometry.
Yes, and now Tim Osmond says because he was bamboozled into saying nobody claims that Earth curve is the horizon, that he didn't say it free of thought. He was bamboozled, right?
Yeah, on 3 separate occasions, like Judas, he said nobody claims the horizon is Earth curve or a variant thereof. Clear for all to hear. And then at the point that I pointed out that no, you're claiming it, you've got a picture with multiple horizons and the words "This is Earth curve" as the title, isn't just an implication that you're implying Earth curve is the horizon, it's the basis of the globe belief. It all starts with their horizon belief as it being a physical edge to block things.
Well, the biggest issue is the fact that their own refraction mathematics is all based on the horizon being a physical geometric location. But they then will state that we can never see this physical geometric location. And then they have absolutely zero credibility for their refraction mathematics, because that's based on them actually seeing this physical geometric location. So
that's correct. That's 7/6R that Brian's referencing. So their terrestrial refraction, otherwise known as standard refraction, is what he's referring to, which would require the R value in their mathematical reification of this light bending at the rate of an Earth curve that is presupposed. And that's the R value in the 7/6R of standard, aka terrestrial refraction. So any evidence of the R value?
Well, hang on. I'm not done there, if I may. There's a perfect segue for Andrew Thomas Young, because he said that all of the refraction studies and calculations were based on a plane surface, but then later had to be reworked to make it work on a curved surface. And you have to go to a different page to figure out how to do that. So think about the admission there that any refraction that ever was observed or studied was on a plane surface. But then they have to match to a model that doesn't exist in order to make it work on a curved surface. And then when we say, where is the curvature? We can't see it. And then when we show the black swan, when it needs to be where it's supposed to be, and it's not there, they say, well, we never seen it. Well, you never even had a study of refraction with it, because it's all from plane surfaces. So you're lying about the whole thing?
Yep. It becomes a paradox, as Arwen puts it. Hey, Chocolate.
Yep.
Good morning, guys.
Morning.
A very good morning. We're what? Nearly 10 minutes into the show, and we're still on any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon that used to block boats and buildings with its physicality, formerly known as Earth curve. We're still on that question. Pretty good going, I would say, for a Monday.
Well, I think that the ballers cannot now just continue to basically disclaim that they ever claimed it was an edge of a sphere, but yet they'll just bring up something new, like, for example, the mage balloon, and then insert it anyway. Right after they said, but we don't claim a geometrical horizon. Oh, by the way, there it is in the picture right there. Woo!
That's embarrassing, though, eh? Yeah, that's Mr. Sensible you're referring to. How embarrassing. Feel free, let loose, Flatsoid. I know you can smell blood in the water.
Well, apparent it's real. You cannot go to the horizon and stick a flag in it.
Or mark it with an X and call it a tangent point. An edge for boats to fall over. How ironic that the globe Earth has boats falling over an edge. And what's that you say? Us flat earthers have got a flat earth society that represents us, apparently, with boats falling off the edge of a pizza pie. That's weird, isn't it? That the globe's got boats falling over an edge in their geometry we've debunked, and yet we get charged with an edge that we don't actually have. It's part of the controlled opposition narrative of flat earth society. Isn't that funny? Just a coincidence, perhaps.
Yeah, and that's why they have to contradict themselves by saying it's not physical, and then still send a balloon seeing an optical horizon and still claim it's physical while it's optical at the same time, because they're stuck in a corner. They got nowhere to run.
Yep, that's cognitive dissonance for you. Holding two positions simultaneously. Well, nobody claims that the horizon is Earth curve. Nobody's saying that geometry is capable of being seen. Nobody's saying we have a physical horizon. Oh, right. So this maths with an X and a horizon marked with an X, and the maths for how much it blocks boats and buildings as boats go over your globe edge, that's not something you're saying. Well, you've bamboozled me!
Are you muting me?
Class. So we're on to R. That's it, Chocolate. We've had 2 questions. We're going to move on, though. Any evidence of R? It's been discussed extensively in this last question, but nevertheless.
No evidence.
Brian?
No evidence whatsoever. It's in the math, that's all. And maths that connect to an oblate spheroid model that has no relevance in reality. Thank you.
Can we state...
You
Sorry,
can
Flat, sorry.
recognize
I saw
any
John flashing. Hold on, Alwyn, sorry.
related structure if you find the R value within it.
Yeah, they need to. Hold on, Flatsoid. Hold on, Alwyn. Hello. I saw John flashing away. Go ahead. Got nothing. It's my Discord server crashed. Let's just refresh it. Hold on a second, guys. In Google, a minor technical issue. Can you try again, Brian?
Yes.
No, Brian. I meant John. Sorry, Brian. I meant John.
I think the people that argue this forgot how they derived R to begin with, but they want to keep R.
Yeah, it's Al-Biruni.
I'll go after Brian.
Sorry, I'm just saying there is actually an R value. It's called ridiculousness.
Right, Alwyn. Then Brian. Sorry, Brian.
That's not a value, Flatsoid. That's a description.
Right, we're all caught up. Brian, go ahead.
Thanks, Nathan. The R value actually originated with Pythagoras. Everything after that was only referring back to Pythagoras' mathematics concerning the R value. 8 inches per mile squared comes directly from Pythagoras. And this claim of it making a parabola, if people on the globe side want to argue that point, then they need to look at what a parabola is, and they need to speak to George Nekchuk, who keeps putting the ball back in their place concerning this, who shows that doesn't, it will make a circle. But it all comes directly from Pythagoras. The R value, Aristarchus, Eratosthenes, Al-Biruni, they all refer to Pythagoras. That's where the R value comes from. Pythagoras was a mathematician and a numerologist, and he loved spheres. There's something about that shape or something he liked. But that's where it all comes from. All starts with him, whoever he was.
Sure, it's Pythagorean, the methodology employed by Al-Biruni to get the triangle to derive the R by the dip angle. But the Pythagorean method is being utilised by Al-Biruni. And the point I'm bringing this up isn't to disagree with Brian, quite the contrary. It's just that Al-Biruni reifies the horizon into a physical tangent point to get the dip angle measurement. So he's saying because the physicality of the sphere edge is lower than my measured 90 degrees from my zenith, even though he's assuming that zenith points to a centre of a sphere to begin with to be doing this, we'll brush past that and say he's actually got a tangent point for the measurement it's required. And that tangent point is the horizon. So he's saying the horizon is physical for me to apply the Pythagorean maths, draw that triangle after the tangent point has been made and labelled as physical as an earth curve sphere edge. So in other words, you must have a physical edge. The horizon must be physical for it to be a globe. It isn't, so it isn't.
So, if I may, in a 2-dimensional sphere or circle on a piece of paper, or a 3-dimensional sphere, the middle to the edges is the radius. And when you come to the edge, it forms an arc. They have a radius value of 3959. So the arc would have to match the mathematics. And the mathematics say that at the 1 foot observer height, the arc of this circle or sphere has to be at 1.22 miles. There's no such thing. It's all a model. No one's been to the radius. No one's taken the sextant reading from the radius as they have the sunlight or the moonlight or any star going through the surface of the earth to the radius and then starting their vertex there. Angles are formed by 2 straight rays with an endpoint called the vertex. And no one's been to the center of the earth doing the sextant reading. It's all done on the surface, on a plane.
Yeah, with an assumed physical horizon to give them a tangent point to derive an r from with Pythagorean mathematics. But it's only based on assumptions, and you need a physical horizon for it, which is why they feel we're bamboozling them when we point out to them that they're telling us how non-physical it is, when we say, well, it's not in the position that it can be in physically. And they say, well, it's refracted. Well, you're screwed because you've got a refractive value that's based on an r value that's based on a measurement of a physical horizon. So that's paradoxical. Shout out to Godzilla37, who says, the only R, in quotes, I found was between Q and S. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat, Godzilla. Really appreciate the support. So we've had Earth curve, physical, and R. Should we move on? Any more for any more?
Well, just one last thought. There should be the arc. There is no arc. There's no Earth curve. There's no arc.
Yeah, there's no donkey dick.
Yeah, the Earth isn't curved.
I'd like to say that, although I'm not going to do it now, I could do it someday if you're interested. I could show how numerology, although it's pseudoscience, it's not science, but I could show how that has been worked into the latitude and longitude grid, and how the basis of the globe model actually starts with numerology because Pythagoras was a numerology master. He even came up with his own school of numerology. He changed the original school of numerology. Now, that is all kind of like pseudoscience to people, but I could show some things that would be shocking. And I could also make refer to certain measurements to do with the sun, the what's it called, the Kármán line and other things, and how they're all origins are all numerological, not mathematical. Just throwing that out there.
Oh, you're just talking about a different language to describe things, though, right?
Yeah, well, the exact distance to the sun and the exact distance to the Kármán line, for instance, all end up at the number 9. 9 is the most important number in numerology. It always ends up at 9. So many things end up at 9. I could show a load of different things, even to do with the flat Earth. Let's just say if you were to flatten the latitude and longitude grid, certain things, if you were trying to work out certain things, if you presumed flat Earth measurements, let's just say, according to that grid, it still works out at number 9. It's just, there's a load of things that work out. Like their whole model is based in numerology originally. And the reason I'm really bringing that up is not to kind of talk about some kind of pseudoscience, but it's the people that defend this model would laugh at something like numerology, yet that is the basis of their model. But you're not wrong, it is just another way of describing it, another type of language.
Right, indeed. And the language is being utilised for the purposes of reification in this instance. So you're saying, well, the measurement in numerology and the way it works out, calculates back to is 9, whereas in their distance calculations to the Kármán line, you've got, it's like, what's the Kármán line? Doesn't exist. Distance to the sun, based on R. It's all nonsense. So the fact that the mathematics are derived from a certain point is obvious because it's only ever descriptive. It's never being demonstrated in physicality. None of the stuff in the heliocentric, as you correctly point out, Brian, model is real. It's a model. So the fact that the mathematics might work in particular ways, one based on numerology, one based on simple, whatever, binary mathematics, it doesn't matter. It's just a description that's been reified. So I can describe, with mathematics, the Kármán line and the gas pressure we experience. Okay, does that make it real? No. Well, I can describe it all day long, and in multiple different ways. Wowee. Okay. But what I think your point is that it's back to understanding the other side's argument. So you hear people talking about gematria and numerology and various things, and it's like, no, it's actually know thy enemy. You're trying to figure out what it is that's led you to this position where you've been subject to a massive deception. And on the way, you find that things that are labelled as ridicule-worthy are perhaps still ridicule-worthy, but actually being utilised by the opponent you fight. What do you know? I think that's your point, right, Brian?
Well, yeah, I mean, I heard you on the show there speaking. I think I was on I'm not sure if I was on the show, but I couldn't speak at the time. I was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, Nathan, and you were talking, the Kármán line came up, and you're asking, why is this the exact, what is this about? There was this exact distance to the Kármán line. And why is it that? Why is it that distance? Why did they choose that distance? They didn't. They chose the number 9 and they made a derivative, a mathematical derivative of the numerological number 9. That's what they did. So the exact distance, to the Karman 9 works out at number 9. So they don't have to come up with an exact distance. They just need to back engineer from the number 9 mathematically. So that just basically shows how false the whole thing is.
No, I see. It's a similar. I've heard similar arguments made for the 66.6 degrees off horizontal, the tilt, and various other things that, when you back engineer them, they're beautifully rounded in terms of their mathematical precision, and you're like, oh, isn't that convenient? Doesn't it work out nicely? And they would probably say, well, that's how things are, right? Things work out beautifully. It's like, well, your maths is working out and describing something linguistically when you verbalize it to me as the world we experience physically. And it isn't. It's just that simple. Or not simple, depending on who you are.
Well, even you just mentioned in there the 66.6 thing that people latch onto, and they get conspiratorial about it. That works out at 9 as well. 3 6s are 18, 1 in 8 is 9. It all comes back to 9. This is all, like, I can't point a finger at who did this or whatever, but this is my point with Pythagoras. Pythagoras was a master numerologist, and that's why they often refer to his mathematics, that so many things with the globe model, even the exact distance to the sun in their model, it all comes back to 9. It's like, so somebody made up a model that's based on basic numerology, and these people are out there fighting us, talking as if they have science, and if they laugh at things like numerology, yet their whole belief system is based originally in numerology.
But would that not be down to Kepler?
No, it would be before Kepler. I mean, they just have to when it comes to, they just have to take the number 9, the number they want, and which is 9, and just work it backwards. That's all they have to do. Work a mathematical equation backwards from 9. So they'll always end up at 9. I even could show, so I'm not going to show it now, but I could show it. Maybe even during the week I'll show it. Something to do with using the latitude and longitude grid, and how you would get particular, let's say for the Tropic of Cancer, the equator, and the Tropic of Capricorn. If you use that in a flat earth type way and use measurements using the 69 miles per degree, I can't prove any of that. It's just using that grid, let's just say. How them three places, let's say arbitrary places, the Tropic of Cancer, Equator, and Tropic of Capricorn, how they all work out. One works out, the Equator works out at 33, one works out at 9, and the other one works out at 3. So people they latch onto the 33 thing if they're being conspiratorial and go, oh, yeah, it must be Freemasonry or some nonsense like that, right? What they're forgetting about is 33 and the 3 make up a 9. Add those two 9s together, you get 18. 1 and 8 is 9. It all comes back to 9. So the whole globe model is based on the number 9. That's my point, numerologically. And we're arguing with a lot of people who think that they are fighting for a real thing that actually originated in the mind of a trickster. That's about the size of it.
Well, no, at a base level, I think the normies think that they've got measurements, actual physical measurements.
Don't you think it's weird that in the occult, the number 9 is actually for Mars, and why they're pushing Mars all of a sudden?
No, but this is all getting a bit conspiratorial. I just don't have a good enough grasp on it myself to know what Brian's talking about is verging into us being conspiratorial, or Brian exposing their own side using physicality to justify their belief in a model, and how the model has come into existence through things like numerology.
Yeah, what I'll do is during the week I'll try and deal with a very small 5-minute thing, just to give an example of it. I'll just throw 2 or 3 examples out there. The point I'm making is numerology is something that the average baller would laugh at. I would call it stupid, silly nonsense. Yet that is the actual basis for their whole belief and model. The very thing they laugh at. I'm not trying to support or promote numerology. I'm pointing out that all these supposed measurements, like these supposed official measurements and distances, always seem to come back exactly back to numerology.
Gotcha.
So
well, I know what you're saying. It's a dangerous tightrope, because you go down this road, and I'll give you an example. You might have somebody say you and your reference frames have been ruined, and it's you and your numerology has been ruined, and they start debunking the numerology, and it's like, no, I'm exampling how you have got to this point with your belief with numerology. I may or may not believe in it even. I don't care. It's just me pointing out how we've come to where we are. And you're now debunking me pointing out how you have come to your belief in the globe via numerology, and it's suddenly numerology that gets the focus, and you get, you being debunked for your presentation or, lack of knowledge on the subject. I'm not saying you're good or bad on it. I'm just saying that if there's a flaw in it, suddenly you're having that criticised rather than the point being, well, no, that's how your globe model's constructed.
Of course, that'll happen. Can I make a point, please? I'll move on quickly, but look, there's plenty of globers out there that would literally just state math is reality. So if they think that, if they reify that, then numerology is not really that far off, in my opinion. Just another way of dealing with numbers. So
yeah, it's just the difference between maths and numerology is the number 0. Maths have a 0. Numerology is done different, but maths have a 0. No.
Is there any more on this?
I think you're talking about the decimal system now. That's
okay. We're into the weeds, man. Brian, anything you want to close out with this particular subject? Go ahead, Brian.
No, just pointing out, Nathan, where they have no idea about their own model, that I can trace it back to a numerologist and show numerology is so involved in their model. Whether he existed or not, it doesn't matter. I can show how there's too many things that refer back to a numerological start. So how could they have an exact distance to the camera line or an exact distance to the sun? Where are they getting these from? Often there's always measurements and supposed measurements and nonsense, and we all know the nonsense they went through to get the distance to the sun. But I mean, the basis of the actual number they come up with starts with 9. So the right thing, the point, you understand it, I think, anyway, Nathan, at least, and I don't know about the rest of the panel, they haven't said it. But,
sure. But it's a good segue to move on to the housekeeping. Hey, Chocolate, what are we at? Half an hour in, 2 questions, not bad. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Nice.
Yo.
Hello? Who is yoing?
I think that was Harvey.
Distance to the sun? Anybody? Anybody at all?
Well, I don't think there is any whatsoever. We can't pinpoint it now at all. It's refracted all the time. We don't know what it is.
Well, it would have to be an object in order to be able to have a distance to it in a Euclidean sense. Now, is it an object? Do we have any empirical evidence that it is? I know the globers like to say it is because there is some light interacting with the surface over here, suggesting that must come from that object, although that's very circumstantial evidence, not really direct proof that is emanating from a physical object, although that seems logical, But is there any actual evidence to support that there is an object to have a distance to in the first place?
It's intangible.
But why is the distance keep changing even on their heliocentric model if they say it's so factual? Then why does it keep changing?
They just make it up.
The model, you mean the distance in the model, right?
Yeah, the
model is not real, right? So yeah, the distances in the model can change whenever they like, whenever they decide that. Doesn't mean that's actually changing in reality, though. It's just a model-based estimation.
Then why are they pushing this model as if it's reality?
I know that they are. They still disclaim that it's a model. It's punted by the people. It's organically turned into a public reification. So many of the people who defend it in cognitive dissonance are exactly that. They're in cognitive dissonance at the point that they have a contradiction with a requirement for a physical Earth curve edge or whatever. So, initially, and to a certain degree in education, it's taught as a model, right? Well, at a base level, at least, we're not living on a model, and if you don't appreciate that's kind of on you. Now, I appreciate that there's many people out there who've taken that one step further and then do reify it and do, therefore, punt the idea that we're actually stood on a sphere. But if you do a bit of scratching beneath the surface, you pretty quickly find out it's just a model.
Just like Camelot.
Right. Any scientific evidence of gravity? Unless there's anything more on the distance to the sun. Anybody in Discord? About 5 words out of you for the whole half an hour so far.
I got something on gravity, but
Feel free. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
well, oh, okay, yeah, it's just I think the whole gravity thing. I know it became a reification fallacy, but I think initially when it started, it was just a way to divert from the proof against the model. Like when Newton was, postulating it, he was given reasons why it could be a sphere instead of trying to prove the sphere.
I see. Any more? Gravity
Well,
not... Go on.
If it's claimed to be scientific, shouldn't they have a hypothesis for it?
Yeah.
Where is this hypothesis?
And they don't have one. It's not scientifically validated. It's a just so story based on conceptual medium spending. It's quite ludicrous.
That tells me, did they even get past the observation part? I don't even think they've observed it.
No, there's no observed phenomena whatsoever. As I say, bending of concepts, you're not going to experience that in reality. It's conceptual.
How does it start? The uneven distribution of what? What's the full statement?
Uneven distribution of mass causing the bending of space-time.
And that's been seen by these people?
No.
How do you manipulate this uneven distribution of mass in order to... What was it again?
Sleeping Warrior wants to join.
Space-time?
Think we...
And electric charge.
And now a word from our sponsor, Sleeping Warrior.
Yo.
Hey, you came with your thing.
Hey.
Join because
Did any of you guys catch Dr. John Dee's latest video, his energy one, how energy itself is a reification fallacy? Did you come across that?
I'd proofread it about two or three times before he actually published it, although I did check in to hear the dulcet tones of who was it the voiceover again? It was Karen B, right?
Yeah, Karen B.
I tuned in just to hear it and just to see if the production was nice and what it looked like, and scrubbed through it, but I'd read it several times before he presented it.
Oh, right, okay. So, basically, I've not seen it before. I saw the name of it, the title, and I listened to it, and I listened all the way through because he was talking about phlogiston, and I've heard the phlogiston story before. And the more I got into it, the more I was enjoying it. And I kind of forgot that it was about energy. And the more he got into it, and the more, because it went on for some time, 27 minutes or whatever it was, by 20 minutes on, I'd completely forgotten he was talking about energy. I was so engrossed in the phlogiston story and how energy, and I'd forgotten that the focal point was energy. And even though he was comparing it with energy, in my head, we were talking about gravity by this point, because everything that he was saying was essentially what gravity is. So we get to 25 minutes in towards the end, and he's winding it up, and he's getting to the point where he's going to bring it all back to gravity. And he was using energy as a comparison. And he didn't do it. And I'd actually forgot that we were talking about energy. I actually thought he was going to bring it back onto track and finish off in nail gravity to the mast. And he didn't do it. And then I had to wonder, why did he not do that? And I went back to realize that he was actually talking about energy. Yet the same arguments that he gives against the concept of energy apply identically with gravity. So much so that I even rang him and asked him, why did I come across this as though it was gravity? And he said, yeah, it's because it's in your head all the time. It's like, yeah, it is. But nonetheless, energy, gravity, they're the same thing. They're just both reification fallacies.
Correct. Now, they're both useful, right? Both gravity and energy are used. And initially, my first comment to him was, well, I need this, don't I? I use energy to explain stuff. It's like, oh, chocolate, I'm glad you're here. So it's like, oh, right, so because you've got an old and busted hammer, you don't want to let that old and busted hammer go now, do you? That's what went through my mind. And I can't remember what I rattled it through, but I was like, well, when it comes to us trampling on some fundamentalist belief that people hold dear to, not necessarily gravity, that was just obviously your experience of his presentation, but you go, okay, well, just because I've demolished that well-held, well-established, thought to be true point, and I've replaced it with zero, why is this different? Just because I use that word in describing how things interact, it's like, okay. I mean, it's too soon to do this, but next time it comes up, Anthony, you'll go, oh, his subject matter was, what was it the subject matter again, Anthony?
Yeah.
What was the subject matter?
Perfect equivalence.
Hold on. What was the subject matter?
Energy.
What's that?
Oh, it's a concept, Nathan.
Right.
Now, previously, we'd not considered the possibility that energy was a concept, right?
No, just part of our vernacular.
No? Yeah, just a language that we use to describe what's going on, right? Energy, potential, all that kind of stuff. Lovely stuff, right? Sounds intelligent. Sophistry, almost. It sounds sophistry, right? But when he was doing the video, I'd forgotten that he started talking about energy, and I thought he was using it to compare it to, by the way, towards the end. And obviously, there was no drawback to gravity. And I'm like, where's the punchline? Where's the gravity bit? Because I'd just forgotten that we were talking about energy. And I was like, wow, that's a bit of a skull cracker, isn't it? Because like energy is a bit of an issue now, isn't it?
Yeah,
but it is kind of a catch-all system. It's just a big spoon to scoop everything up, so you can basically compare them, and then it's very much alike. Let's call that energy, that similarity, the synchronization.
I defy anybody. I defy anybody to watch Dr. John's latest video and not think that he's talking about gravity along the way.
But you know what I like about it? It's showing it weeds out the people that have a fundamentalist belief in something. I mean, like Globus last night. I couldn't watch it because they were totally going against the scientific method just because they need energy for their pulling gravity, magnetic, diametric rubbish. So they're trying to throw his videos out the water, saying it's not actually plausible just because they needed to reify their
beautiful John these videos.
Well, that's fair enough, though. Hold on. Initially, that was my reaction. When I first read it, that was my initial gut reaction. I'm like, hang on, I need this, don't I? I need this. Therefore bad. And I expressed that, admittedly, with a bit of a joke, tongue-in-cheek to John. But I'm like anything. I'm surprised you're saying this about Globebusters, because Jaron's one of the panel members, right? And this is going back probably 5 years. And he's describing his first entry into Flat Earth and saying that he's basically like peeling back the layers, and he gets to a certain stage, i.e. Flat Earth, and goes, whoa, we don't go back that far, do we? You know, because he's going back through, that's right, he's going back through old books and saying, hang on a second, some of this seems questionable, and some of the sources aren't primary sources. I've only got books going back this far. Well, let's go back and look at it all. Let's just throw it all to the wayside. And then, you know, Flat Earth, I think his wife might have brought it up, and he goes, whoa, you know, that's a bit extreme, isn't it? Can't throw everything out. Now, yeah, there's a seed of truth in that, because it's like you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know, if you're going to compare, I don't know, scientifically validated germ theory because you don't like some of the assertions made about certain viruses, for the sake of argument. Well, that's throwing the baby out of the bathwater if you completely disavow the validity that's been offered with science. So in this instance, yeah, there's a grain of truth in saying, no, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. But by the same token, is it the case that you suddenly don't look at it because you actually employ some of that particular logic in your worldview? Well, if it's the same for the globe, it's the same for energy, right? It's just a reification fallacy when employed in a certain fashion. because it's just a description. Now, you can take that further too, which would also be throwing the baby out with the bathwater, which is saying, well, everything's a reification fallacy then. Everything's got to be described. Well, no, things have actually got physical nature. Well, it's a bit of a head scratcher when you start thinking about it with quote unquote energy. Suddenly you have to open your eyes and go, okay, maybe this is something that I just hadn't considered. It was very eye-opening for me, Sleeping Warrior. I'm glad it was for you too.
Absolutely. I watched it and I just thought, there's nobody on our side that can disagree with this. It is so well put together that it's so clear. But even though I saw it as a total equivalence and I forgot that we were talking about energy, I see how they're just directly the same thing, the same point, and it's a perfect equivalence. So shout out to Dr. Drumdy.
I think the context...
Every time you catch wind of some kind of reification, you always end up smelling gravity. Tony, you do every time. It's always all roads lead to gravity when it concerns your.
Yeah. Should we deal with this? Should we deal with this now, Anthony?
Energy is like a catch-all phrase that kind of means everything. But how is that any different to gravity? It's the same thing.
Show us on the doll where the gravity hurt you.
Yeah, everywhere.
I think it's on the context in which we use it. Like if you say, oh, I'm too tired to go out, I lack energy. There's nothing wrong with saying that. So if you're going to describe what it is versus using it to describe how you feel, right? Isn't that where you guys are going?
Well, I would just like to say, unless Nathan, you want to say something, I'll go after you.
Yeah, Brian.
All right, thanks. Thank you. I'd just like to say about, it's along the lines of what the lads are saying, including what Tent Man is saying. On Globebusters, I heard maybe half of it, maybe. And they were poo-pooing a lot of what Dr. John was saying. But they completely misrepresented him and misunderstood him. He didn't say at any point that you couldn't use the word energy to describe. And he didn't say energy doesn't exist. What he was saying is that energy can't be proven to exist in the way that it's being reified. That's his point. He said you can't use the scientific method to prove that this energy exists.
Correct. Correct. He's not saying you can't. And I had to clarify this again after the second or third time or whatever I looked at it. I was like, so yeah, without throwing the baby out with the bathwater, you're not saying that if I throw a ball at the wall and it comes back at me, I can't describe with the word energy a process of something happening. But when it comes to me pushing a rock and getting very sweaty and nothing happening, the version of the description hasn't got a satisfactory explanation. Now, that's fine because it's only a description anyway, and that's the point. You can't suddenly say, well, I'm never going to use that word again. It's like, well, you can devolve yourself if you do that, and you end up having no beautiful language, poetry, as Anthony puts it, to actually paraphrase an action or a process into language. You need these things, but the problem lies in the assumption of it having a physicality. So it goes from you describing a process to the words used to describe the process becoming something that becomes physical in actuality. Well, it's like, well, where's the energy? Did the energy go in from the ball into the wall as it bounced back? Well, you could describe that as the potential energy held in the ball and then transferring into the wall and then it putting it back in again and bouncing off. Well, you could, but then if you take that energy at the point of contact, you've suddenly reified something that doesn't really exist into actual physicality. That's the problem. It's the reification of the description, not the description of a process that you can observe happening. So yes, there's plenty of examples that you can still use the word energy in. It's not like we're going to say, oh, no, energy doesn't exist. No, the reification of energy. Anthony summed it up because you can transpose this immediately onto gravity, right? A force. So you've got to have something in physicality as opposed to a description of a process. Well, if you've got things moving out of disequilibrium and finding equilibrium, that's a process. But if you say there's an energy transfer, it's like, show me it. What you actually did was add salt, right? There wasn't a chemical exchange. There was, what energy? What are you talking about? But you can describe the process and insert something that's physical by way of reification of a linguistic process. And in this case, the word energy. Hope that's clear.
Yeah, I just thought that where Globebusters started off with Dr. John's stuff, 2 videos, was with a bias against a bias against the scientific method due to a complete lack of understanding of it. I don't think anyone, including, and I have to say this, including Austin on the Globebusters team, I don't think any of them actually understand the scientific method. I don't think they actually get it. I think that, excuse me.
No, they do. They do. The problem with scientific method with regards to Globebusters, if they accept scientific method and they accept that the independent variable was the cause of the presumed effect, then that means that they can't pontificate for other effects, that other causes that they want to I mean, imagine this, right? My egg test, that demonstrated something. Now you can argue about how much you want to. You can argue about what you see and what you think's gone on, but there's no doubt that mass did do something, right? When I added that something, it did cause an acceleration with the egg. There's no disputing that. You can argue about exactly how it did it, but the point is that mass does something. But if you accept that independent variable is the thing that I manipulated, then it excludes the thing that I did not manipulate or that you infer. Well, if you accept the independent variable, that means that you expressly reject or you impliedly reject that anything else did. So that means you can't argue about little fairies or gravity gnomes or like anything else.
Or mass.
You've got to, you can argue about what actually happened, but you've got to accept that the thing that I manipulated, whatever that thing might be, you've got to accept that did cause something.
It's just, I'm pouring, excuse the pun, salt into the wound. The problem is that you can devolve this into a useful word to describe adding something physical to your mixture to increase what you're going to call density. Now, you use the word mass. Now, I'm saying that in the same way, when we're talking about energy, you can devolve it into the point where you don't have a good enough or an eloquent enough way of describing anything if you take it down that road. And likewise, we know what you mean when you say mass in this context, right? But mass is another thing that has been reified. And my point is that you don't want to necessarily throw the baby out with the bathwater and say energy, it doesn't exist. Well, it does. It exists as a description for a process that you can observe. And that's useful in context. The problem is the reification. With things like gravity, that's the problem.
That's why I contrasted and said, like, regardless of how you can argue over the interpretation of what the results were. You can say that it was a chemical reaction, or you can say that this happened, or that. That's fine. But there can be no doubt that the thing that the effect, whatever that effect can be described as, was caused by me. But Globebusters can't accept that because they want to pontificate around other causes that are inferred. That's the reason why they appear not to understand it, but actually they do understand it, but they won't agree to it because it stops them from talking about fairies. And that's the reason why they appear that they don't understand it. They do. They just choose to ignore it.
I don't know, because I was listening to some of them refer to it, and then one or two, I think it was Rodrigo Ferrari Nunez, and I heard Cami, which is Bob's wife, I don't know the lady myself, referring to the use of the scientific method at some point in their careers.
Did we lose
and
it?
what they were speaking about wasn't the use of the scientific method. It led me to believe they didn't know what they were talking about.
No, they do. It's called if you're going to obfuscate something or you're going to discombobulate an argument to confuse people, then you can make it sound like you're complying in the confusion. And that's what's happening. They're discombobulating that argument so that it looks like they're doing science, but actually they're not doing science. And that's why we've got the method that everybody can understand.
Let's just summarize what that method is. So the scientific method starts with a phenomenon that you're going to study. So naturally occurring, happening, for simplistic language, something that is happening in nature. Now that we are going to call a phenomenon, and you want to know what caused it. Why did that happen? That's the start of the scientific method. So the first thing you're going to need is something actually happening. That's your observed phenomena. It's also your dependent variable in the hypothesis, which we'll come to in a second. So your dependent variable, ipso facto, is the thing you've observed and want to know what caused it. So that's half a hypothesis already figured out. All you need to then do is assume what caused it. So what you think, you don't know yet, but what you think caused that effect. Now that is your presumed cause. The name says it all. You presume it's going to cause that effect when you vary this thing that you vary. That's the other half of a hypothesis. That's called an independent variable. Now, it has to satisfy a few criteria. First, I've already discussed. It's your presumed cause. The second is it must be real. The third is it must be capable of actually being varied by you, the researcher. So, once you've got something you think causes the effect you observed in nature, you then vary it and see if it causes it. And if it does, you've validated what's called your alternative hypothesis. And the alternative hypothesis is simply, or oversimplistically put, as I think this caused that. If independent variable, then dependent variable. I think this thing I've got in my hand and can vary will cause that effect I observed in nature to actually happen. And if you vary it and it happens, you have validated your cause of the effect you observed in nature. That's a validated scientific experiment. Varying and manipulating something you think causes an effect to see if it causes it. That's the scientific method. There's a other detail that's also critical and offers the empiricism, which is the null hypothesis. Now, if your alternative, which was just described as being validated, is if I vary this thing I think causes the effect, then it will cause the effect, then the null is the absolute antithesis of that, which is if I vary this thing I think causes the effect, then it won't cause the effect. Now, if you've got both null and alternative hypothesis and you perform an experiment, that's vary the thing you think causes the effect and see if it causes it or not. One or other will be validated. Either you validate, that's prove your null. I varied this thing and it didn't cause the effect. I've proven my null. If I vary this, it doesn't cause that. Or, as I described previously, you do cause it. You vary it, it causes it, you validated your hypothesis. So therefore, you've proven the cause of the effect. One or other will happen if you've got a validated hypothesis, because you've performed a satisfactory experiment based on you observing something happen in nature and you correctly identifying the thing that caused it. That is science.
Let me just take it one step further.
Question comes. Sorry, go ahead.
With regards to my egg test, if I say that if I add this salt, the egg will move, that means that if I add the salt and no other causes. So if you're going to infer that there is an additional cause that goes beyond that to make my test a correlation rather than a causative cause and effect relationship, then you're entitled to do that, because that's how science progresses. You take somebody else's previously demonstrated task, demonstrate that it was correlative by keeping everything else the same, and then manipulating the other bit that you think causes it, and prove that the egg then moves, accelerates. But if you fail to do that and it does not accelerate, then you're forced to accept your null because you didn't demonstrate the acceleration, which then means you've got to accept that when I did my bit, that did what I said it did, and it wasn't correlative, it was causative. So if you think that little green pixies that were playing on forces, pulling things or pushing things or whatever, then it's on you to demonstrate that it does do that by repeating the test and changing the bit that you think causes it to demonstrate that mine was correlative, not just preaching it. So if you think that that's the case, demonstrate it and then accept that it's correlative. I'll accept it's correlative. But if you fail to demonstrate it, therefore you fail to demonstrate its correlation, you must accept that it was the cause. That's why Globebusters doesn't like scientific method, because they know that they can't demonstrate it.
Hold on, Anthony. Hold on 1 second. Al Broccoli, go ahead.
Well, the cause was not the salt, though, was it? It was a change.
So what's the definition,
right?
So what's the definition for the independent variable?
That you manipulate. But what did you manipulate? Was it the salt, or you manipulated the density of the water?
So I predicted that if I added salt to the water, it would increase the density of the water and a displacement or an acceleration would occur. I added the salt and it did that. But if you say I didn't do that, then that's fine. You're now going to make a new claim.
It's just getting clarity from you've given it, Anthony. Yes.
Right.
manipulate the
It's the
density of the
manipulation of the
medium.
density of the water,
correct.
not the.
It doesn't matter. It's water, just the medium.
Yeah,
Yes,
it could have added sugar.
the density of the
the
medium.
medium.
Stop. All he's asking is, are you saying salt causes things to rise? And no, he's not. He's saying he's varied the density of the medium. In that case, the egg was suspended in water. He increased the density of the water by adding salt to it, which increased the thickness, the viscosity, whatever word you want to use, beautiful language that we have. Yeah, he changed the density of the water and caused an acceleration. He forced it out of equilibrium. Simple.
I think.
Right.
Sorry, I go after.
No. That was the clarity I needed.
Yeah,
It's just the exclusion of the other factors that makes it causative. If you think that there is an additional cause and it was a correlation only that I demonstrated, then the onus is on you to demonstrate that correlation. But if you can't demonstrate
yes, we've heard that. You're repeating yourself. I'm sorry.
You must accept that it's causative.
Yes, we heard that. Thank you. But we've spent quite a bit of time on this internal issue just so that it's at least loosely related to the subject of globe Earth versus flat Earth. Any single viable hypothesis from any field of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Or globebusters.
Or globebusters.
No, because they don't use science.
No, I would like to point something out.
I would like to point something out. That was a very high pedestal that Anthony just put globebusters on. So, shout out to globebusters. Anthony's got you on an incredibly high pedestal.
Shut up, retracted. You
can't shout out my retraction. You can't retract that. How dare you?
Globebusters pushes pseudoscience. That's what.
Oh God, this is going to bleach into the after show. I can just tell. With that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Primary Streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either Primary Stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Hypothesis, your actual cause. So you in the world of actual science, where you actually use scientific method, then there will be more nulls proven than positive hypotheses, because as I said, you could do several different hypothesis tests on what you think is causing something, and your last one could be your sixth one, and that means there was 5 nulls before that. But that doesn't mean science doesn't prove things. It means it's proven or null as opposed to the positive hypothesis. If you understand what I mean.
Yeah, you're going to prove one or the other at the end of a valid experiment. Either your null gets proven, it didn't cause it, or you do, you cause it, and therefore your alternative's validated. One or other is proven at the end of the process. Simple. Now, kudos, Anthony. That was like easily 70% on subject, 30% Bob and Slash or Globebusters bashing. So kudos. That's a much better, more healthy margin.
May I comment on this?
It's just to point out, though, that you can, just one sec. It's just to point out that the reason why Bob rejects Dr. John Dee's video is because he realizes it directly applies to gravity, and that's the reason why he's been hostile.
Yeah, now you're divining his intentions.
No, that's exactly what I've been saying the whole time, because I watched from the beginning. Straight away, the first thing he said was, this isn't right because it needs energy. And you can see he needs energy for his gravity. He said it from the beginning.
Yep.
You're just dividing his thoughts at this point. This is really just...
I suggest you go watch it, then you'll see what he's talking about.
No, I don't need
not
to.
Divining. He says it straight.
I'm just saying you're dividing his thoughts.
No, we're not.
I'm all right defining his thoughts.
All right, let me divine Anthony's thoughts here.
So let me ask you a question. So I mean, then my other question would be, why up and why down? Could that be more of a law, just like why north
Relative.
for the for the magnetic pull?
Relative.
Law of up and
relative.
down.
Hold on. Let's just answer him. Relative. Those are directions. They are relative.
All directions are relative to a human. Forwards, backwards, left, right, up, down, fast, slow, in, out. They're all directions.
Let me
relative
clarify.
to a human.
Why towards the floor? Why towards the sky?
What, like a bowling ball or a
Density.
tennis ball at the bottom of a seed or something that's released from a plant at the bottom of the ocean? That goes down, does it? No, it goes up relative to its medium because it's relative. Direction's relative. Likewise, I gave an example the other day to a guy. You're in a balloon, a hot air balloon. It's in the air, and you've got a helium tank, and you fill a balloon to get it in equilibrium with you. So you and the helium balloon, your hot air balloon, are both in equilibrium. In free space, you can't see the ground, it's a cloudy day, right? You put the balloon outside of the basket, and it just hovers at the same altitude that you're at. And then you start filling the balloon with hot air, right? You look over the side of the basket at the balloon with helium in it. What direction is the balloon with helium in it going?
Right. I mean, I definitely. I remember hearing the analogy the other day, and I definitely understand that completely. Right. But like denser things, though, this is denser things tends to go towards the ground, meaning the floor.
Yep.
Right, to set into their equilibrium. I mean, I guess that never mind. It's definitely just relative to whatever.
Yes and no.
Still.
Well, yes and no. It's not necessarily the case with gases. So the proportionality of the gas mixture that we have gets thinner as we go up, but doesn't mean that suddenly because one of the gases is more dense that we have a layer of it. Gas is inhomogeneous. It's not in layers. So you don't have a more dense gas at the bottom. Otherwise, we'd all be in the most layered, dense gas, and that's just not the case. It's mixed up.
Right.
May I comment?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I saw Anthony do that egg experiment. I thought it was quite good, especially the white lab coat. So let's say I come to his house and he's got already 2 glasses, one with the added salt to change the density of the water, and one just regular water. He's got 2 eggs. I see that in one glass, the egg's at the bottom. I see at the other one, the egg's right there in the middle, floating inside the glass, inside the water. I said, wow, what's going on here? He says, I'm figuring out what causes eggs to float. And I go, well, how come that one's not floating? Well, that's just regular water. I go, well, how come that one is floating? I added something to it. Well, what'd you add? I added salt. And I said, can I see you do it with a 3rd cup? So he fills up a 3rd cup, he puts an egg. Sure enough, it's at the bottom. He does the salt, and it rises and matches the 2nd cup. So that's exactly what Anthony did. He varied the independent variable, which was the salt, to change the density of the water. How could anyone not see this?
Well,
because the reason why nobody chooses to see this if they don't want to is because if it stops them from inferring that little magical forces or little pixies that pull eggs down or pushes them up, they want to infer that someone else is causing it, but they don't want the burden of being scientific and demonstrating it. They just want to pontificate about it instead. Well, that's the reason why they don't agree with it.
Well, but there's people out there in our community, and they are pushing the ether. And the problem with scientific method is that you will either prove or disprove the existence of the ether that you are postulating or pushing. And they don't want to address scientific method because that would mean they'd have to address their claims of ether.
Well, then aren't we going to exactly what Dr.
First they have
John
to observe the
D.
phenomena
said?
first.
Dr.
Sorry,
John
the
D.
ether?
Talking.
Did you hear him, though?
I was talking and he came on me. I don't know. It seemed like I was
Sorry,
talking first, but
kind of
I'll
clashed.
wait.
Did you first got to observe a phenomenon? Good point.
Right. So back to Dr. John D. with energy. If you want to say that John D. put ether in the place of energy and say you can use it as a descriptive, but you can't prove it, can you say that?
I don't even think you could say that because the concept of ether and what it is as it's described as a medium for light to propagate through. You would have to know what light is before you could know what light needs. But they're going past what light is and just going to the point of what they say light needs without ever,
Right, but if Globebusters would say, we can't prove this, but we think it's this, it'd be okay if they talk that way.
Yeah, postulation. There's nothing wrong with postulation, but just don't be saying definites, because that's what happens with the word energy, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, either if it's there and it's real and it's as prominent as we're told and it does all the things that we're told it supposedly does, then it should be very easy to prove, just like gravity. There shouldn't be any argument about it, Because the state that ether, and this is how I've heard it stated, and Arwen, you can correct me if I'm incorrect, but that it's a matterless medium. So that's a vacuum. You take all the matter away, what have you got? You have a vacuum. So ether is vacuum. It's where are you going with that?
It's really ill thought through. What I've heard out there so far from a lot of the Ethereans, as I like to call them, is that they just conjure this necessity of, but light, what's the medium for it? Matter makes no sense. For no apparent reason, they just handwave dismiss it and say, so it must be ether because when the vacuum is there, it's still the medium. It's just a poorly constructed train of thought that really spurred it all forth.
Well, I can simplify it.
Whatsoever.
I can simplify it with the fact that we're in a closed system. And in the closed system, here at the ground level, the dynamics of all the gases are produced and it goes to a gradient. So whatever the rays of light are coming, it has to go through everything within the closed system.
Can I just get QE's opinion? What's your opinion on the ether, John?
Good morning.
Morning.
He's had breakfast. I can hear it.
No, I haven't had breakfast.
You're eating it?
Do you have something to do right after this?
Me, yeah, I'm taking my kid to a swimming lesson.
When are you going to be done?
I've no idea. Why?
You got some time today?
Probably not today, no. Why, do you want to talk about ether?
No.
Oh, go on.
It's because of energy, isn't it? I saw your very, very, very angry message in the Master B of Ballbusters. So you probably want to talk about that, right?
Nope.
No?
Okay,
then I'm lost.
Nope.
Suspense is going to kill me, so...
Time today, that's fine. What about tomorrow?
Well, we'll see if we can do something now. So with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and Google Panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.